Keevin Lewis, you're here from the Smithsonian Institute, the Museum of the American Indian, and you've come to the community to deal with Dennis White teaching us how to finger weave. Tell us why the Smithsonian supports this kind of work in Indian country.
Back in 1996, I met with a group of Native artists who pretty much outlined the needs and issues affecting artists here in the United States. From that list, I've been trying to use that list as a recipe for how to create programs for indigenous artists. On that list was access to the collections. How do we get around the cities? How do we meet with staff of the museum? And how do we share our art with our community? And how do we continue the artistic knowledge? And so that's basically what I've been trying to do, and what has developed out of that is the Artist Leadership Program, which is a program that Dennis White applied to and was accepted.
There's a wonderful feeling going on in college today with these artists that are gathering with Dennis to make this work. I had the impression that I was living in an old village and that we were all working together. Tell me more about that.
We have about 12 individuals in this room. It's kind of a circular room. It's got access to light and the sky, and people from LCO, Lac Courte Oreilles, Hayward, and as far as 90 miles away from the community of
Lac du Flambeau.
Lac du Flambeau. And they've been driving here every day, 90 miles, to get to this class. And when it first started yesterday, there was a lot of talk and excitement, but since that beginning, it's been a real serious intent on learning. And what I've experienced today was that now they're sharing among each other. Can you show me this? How did you do that particular weave? You know, so it's a little bit more, now it's a little bit more interactive, and people are definitely communicating between each other, both native and non-native.
Dennis is quite a wizard with numbers. He was talking the other day saying we got to have 96 threads. We can't have 97. And he was talking about that being a prime number, and that if you had 97 threads, it wouldn't look quite as integrated as it does with 96. So I was really intrigued by that math. When you're listening to him talk about math, what do you pick up?
Well, math wasn't one of my better subjects in school, but in talking with Dennis about math, what it has instilled in my heart is that there's a lot of logic in how we live our lives. There's a lot of logic to how our indigenous communities have survived, our cosmologies, are the way that we harvest our food, or build our, in this particular case, canoes. You know, there's got to be some kind of measurement, you know, on how things are constructed. You know, so to say that Native people have no sense of math doesn't seem any sense to me.
I was thinking about the Inuit and their language. They have very, very few numbers in their language. I think they go up to about 7 or 8. And yet in English we have infinity. What does that tell us about Inuit society, that they have so few numbers?
Well, I was unaware of that. if that be the case, then I would only think that they would be groups of numbers, which probably is the basis of Dennis's thinking. Groups of 4, groups of 16, you know, they're all divisible by the basic numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, probably need only those numbers to divide.
And it's something you can do in your head without a calculator. You don't necessarily need a computer. I think that tells us something too.
Well, our minds are computers.
Our minds are the first computers.
Are the first computers, yeah.
Okay. But when Dennis is counting these numbers, he's also imparting this sense of beauty and integration into the work that is being made. That it is more beautiful and somehow more resonant when it's a factor of those prime numbers. That's what he's seeing, I think, and what he's picking up. And I don't really see math in that way, so I'm intrigued by his connection to the numbers.
Well, I think the large numbers can be easily broken down to smaller numbers. And life in many ways you take life's problems and try to break it down, you could solve them using smaller solutions or smaller numbers. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay. Overall, how do the patrons and the viewers and the readers of Smithsonian benefit from a program like this at Lac Courte Oreilles? How is this valuable to your people that are following your work?
Well, I think in this particular case, and I think I mentioned previously, is that the National Museum of the American Indian Act is a legislation that repatriates cultural material and human remains. I think in this particular case, here at LCO College, it's a repatriation of cultural arts. And because Dennis came to Washington, D.C., went through the collections, saw cultural material that he's never seen before, inspired by all of that, now comes back home and is now sharing his knowledge with other artists. So in that sense, I think it's an extension of the legislation in repatriating cultural arts.
Thanks for being here with us. We're glad that you're sponsoring this. We're happy for it.
Well, it couldn't come in better support by the Ford Foundation and the Cargill Foundation.
This is Nick Vanderpye and Keevin Lewis for IndianCountryTV.com.